Hey everybody, welcome back. Same disclaimer. Nothing meant for legal purposes. I'm talking about history, opinion, uh, you know, experience, all from the past. This is another topic that came up, and speaking of the past, this video is going to be called "Deciding Factors That Led to Losing and Winning." You know, winning in competition. So, it's been said there's 100 ways to win and 200 ways to lose. You know, if you take that into perspective, it's a pretty accurate statement. And the reasons that someone lost or won could be one factor or many factors, you know. And when I say one factor, it could be something leading up to the show. Could be the dog got spooked. Could be the dog got a hold of something, upset its stomach. Could be you got so riled up, you grabbed his kennel or whatever it was, or lead, and chewed part of it and ate it, or broke his teeth off. You know, uh, there's a lot of things that can happen when breeding dogs, raising dogs, feeding dogs, conditioning dogs. You know, where you get to the point where, okay, I'm competing with this animal. What could go wrong? Well, you could miss the peak. You could, not enough rest. A lot of things that have been covered, and this is not so much as, I'm going to cover what it is that caused a loss or what advantage someone had that helped them win, but it's just to keep in mind that there are factors that can lead to you winning or losing. And this would be true in today's times with the legal sports, with weight pull or treadmill race or hang time, wall climb. In fact, I was at a confirmation show that had the legal sports in it years ago, and a guy brought a dog out and explained to me this dog had won trophies before in treadmill race, the champion treadmill race dog. And he brought the dog out, but the dog, I could tell, hadn't been worked, and the dog was heavy. And this guy put him on the treadmill expecting him to run like he had done in the past. Same speed, same times, and just win the competition. The dog blew out in a relatively short time when he did that, and the guy told me, yeah, he's an ace at this, And I said, well, not today, man. I could see that he's not going to be able to do it. He just wasn't fit enough for it, And the guy was kind of flabbergasted. He couldn't understand how come the dog, in his mind, he felt the dog should be able to repeat those performances regardless of whether he had work on him or not. And that's, I think, a lot of times that people looked, how they looked at dogs in the past. Well, he did it once, he should be able to do it again without taking into consideration all the factors involved, that maybe the dog isn't in good shape. Maybe he's at the wrong weight. Maybe he's too heavy. Maybe he's too thin. Maybe he got spooked by the crowd. Maybe he got spooked by the travel. Maybe his mind wasn't right. Maybe you missed the peak. Maybe you overworked him. Maybe he's tired. Maybe he's sore. Maybe there's an underlying injury. So there's all kinds of factors involved. And when you get it right, you know you got it right. You know your dog. You know he's peaked and primed and ready to go, and his performance will show it. But you also have to be cognizant of the fact that you have to know when you missed it, when the dog isn't right. You can, you can lean on one aspect of, let's say, conditioning, and then ignore other factors that could be involved. It could be something as simple, not just conditioning, but the particular individual. It could be, I have a hard biting dog and he's a killer, But you don't know if he has any heart. You don't know if he has any air. You don't know if he has any ability other than, once he gets your mouth on you, he could put you away. If that don't happen, then what is the dog going to fall back on? And if you don't see that in the schooling, you're never really going to know. You're just relying. And some people, they understand that and that they're relying on that mouth. That's okay. But others figure, well, if he can do that, I got everything else covered. That's not necessarily true. And even the condition, you may think he's in good shape, but he may not be if he has to go 20 or 30 minutes past that point because he's never done it before. So you don't even know if he could do that. And the conditioning helps, but that doesn't mean that he's going to be able to give you that performance of going any distance at all. And that's what I mean. You lean too much on one factor and forget about all the others. I like all-around athletes, kind of a complete package that could handle themselves in any situation and have the tools to finish their opponent or make their opponent quit. That was very important to me. When the competition is close, it requires many factors to win. But within that, when it's close that way, it could be one factor that causes your defeat. When you have evenly, when you have opponents that are evenly matched, they're at the right weight, they're in good condition, good handlers, understand the rules. It could be something simple as, one hit a bleeder that didn't stop flowing. One dog lost their teeth at a certain point during the match. That could have led to his defeat. It could be, I'll tell you, like a fluke, which if this hadn't happened, I think these dogs were evenly matched and the outcome may have been different. It may not have. The winner could have still won. But the dogs were released, and one dog caught the other one by the front leg, and his momentum kept him going, and the leg snapped, broke in half, it fractured, and part of the bone was sticking out. And it was a detriment the whole way. He couldn't stand on that leg, obviously. And that bone would get hung up on the carpet every once in a while. Still went an hour and a half, and the dog showed heart, and he was picked up. But that's a factor that you don't really expect to happen like that. And it does. There's nothing you can do about it. And you just have to accept it. That's what it is. There's other dogs, that's been under those types of circumstances where they're losing, and you can almost bet that dog's going to lose. And they don't quit, and they stay there, and they have enough finish in them to keep it as close as they can with their opponent, and then the opponent pulls up and quits. You would have thought that dog was winning going away. But the heart and determination and finish of the other opponent was the deciding factor. Something you may not expect. And you don't know it till you see it. With each consecutive show that you put a dog through, each conditioning, factors change. The location changes. Maybe the weight on the dog changes. The conditioning could change, matching them in different types of weather. You could have done them in the spring one time, in the winter another time, in the fall another time, in the summer another time. And those conditions can make a difference. So you have to take those into consideration. How do I condition a dog in the heat versus one in when it's real cold, I mean freezing weather. There's a difference. There's even a difference in what weight you may want to bring them in. And if you don't make those adjustments, that could be a deciding factor on why you lost. If you do make those adjustments and your opponent doesn't, or you do make those adjustments and you have a real good dog, that could be the deciding factor of why you won. You always have to have a good dog first. But just as an experienced guy knows how to condition a dog and bring them in right, they do make mistakes and don't have them 100%. Don't bring them in right. There's another aspect to this of, let's say, put it like an amateur versus a professional. There's been amateurs that have beaten professionals, but on a consistent basis, I don't see that happening. The professional has too much in his bag of tricks or too much experience to allow that to happen continually over time generally. And the amateur, he's still in the learning process and doesn't have a lot of experience. And here's another example of that. This young kid went to a derby with several birds and swept the derby. Just beat everybody. It beat all the old heads, And they were talking afterwards, and they asked him, "Hey son, where'd you get them birds from?" One of the old guys were there. He goes, "Hey, I got them from you. Remember years ago, and you called all these birds, and you gave me these birds. These are the offspring of those birds you gave me, And they go, "Really?" "Yeah." And they had good blood, and he had bred them and got these winners and won the derby, but he never could repeat that again. Eventually, because they come from culls, those birds ended up not working out. And even though this kid tried to make them work and bred them different ways, this and that, there was just too many negatives behind them. So that one set of birds that he took to the derby, they were a fluke. They were freaks of nature, or whatever you want to call it. And he did win. And he beat the old heads, more experienced guys. But time showed him that, you can't build a yard of birds from birds with that kind of background. And it's the same with dogs, You may have a freak litter, all of them are good. What's behind that? Are you going to be able to carry that forward, and continue that? Some people can. But once you have too many negatives, it's hard to get all of them out. So that's why you have to have certain standards. And like I said in my other video, you have to be very selective and be willing to be very selective and not make excuses and not make, try and make something out of nothing or very little, So you have to take all that into consideration. And on the whole, the top dogs, top competitors generally have the best success rate. But there's always, whether it's bad luck or circumstances or bad karma, whatever it is, there's always something that could count to a defeat. And it's usually more than one thing, but it can be just one thing, So anytime people, got around and they're talking this and that, whether I disagreed with them or I agreed with them, a lot of times I just held my tongue and listened to what they were saying, taking it into account, and then see if I could use it later in my own dogs or my own breedings, That's some of the best experience I got, was just listening to these old guys talk. A lot of it made sense, some of it didn't. If it didn't make sense, I wasn't going to use it. And I also went against the grain and didn't follow some people's advice just because of that. It didn't make sense to me. But I had to learn not to be bullheaded in not listening to what they're saying, even though it was directed towards me or something that I'd done and just come out in the conversation. because, you know, I could learn from it. And sometimes they ended up being right, whether I wanted to hear it or not. So this is another, just a short vid on deciding factors of why some dogs win and some don't. So again, thank you. And all comments, welcome.